All right, cool. Let's do it. Well, good afternoon, everyone, if you're on the East Coast, and good morning if you're on the West Coast or somewhere in between. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar, Donor Retention is Not Speed Dating. And my name is Stephen Shattuck, and I'm the VP of Marketing here at Bloomerang, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. Just want to go through a couple housekeeping items before we begin. I am recording this presentation, and I'll be sharing the recording a little later on this afternoon. So if you have to leave early, or if you want to watch the content again, or maybe share it with someone in your office, you'll be able to do that. Just look for an email from me a little later on this afternoon. That'll also include the slides from today as well. And as you're listening today, please feel free to use the chat box right there on your webinar screen. We're going to save some time for Q&A at the end, and we'd love to see your questions throughout, see your comments, so don't be shy about that at all. Send questions our way, and we'll answer just as many as we can before the 2 o'clock Eastern hour. And just in case this is your first Bloomerang webinar with us, welcome. Thanks for being here. We do these webinars every Thursday, usually around 1 o'clock. They're always free, always educational. But in addition to those webinars, Bloomerang also offers some really great donor management software. So if you're in the market for that, or maybe thinking about switching or exploring other options, check out our website. You can check out all of our features. You can download a video demo and learn all about us. We'd love for you to do that. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce today's guest. She is Lynn Wester. Hey, Lynn, how's it going?
It's going really well, thanks.
I'm so happy for you to be here. I know you're super busy. You're speaking at basically every conference in the fundraising world, it feels like. So I really appreciate you carving an hour out of your day to do this. And I want to brag on you just a little bit before you get started. If you guys don't know Lynn, you got to know her. You got to follow her online. She's a frequent conference speaker, like I said. She's definitely a well-known resource for donor relations and fundraising expertise. She's been published in the Washington Post, Currents Magazine, Chronicle of Philanthropy, and she writes on LinkedIn a lot. Really great articles there as well. She's got her own blog. We'll be sharing links to that as well. She does a lot of webinars as well herself. I'm just super excited, Lynn, so I'm not going to take any more time away from you. Why don't you go ahead and kick us off, okay?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Stephen. So if anybody wants to tweet, you can tweet me at DonorGuru, and also you can reach Stephen at Bloomerang. And we are going to talk today about donor retention, and this kind of hits across all industries, across all types of nonprofits. And if at any time you have questions, you go ahead and type them right there in the chat or the questions feature, and I'll try to get to those as we go through. So wanted to first start off with my lovely idea of speed dating. So growing up, I'm a kid of the 80s and 90s, so one of my favorite movies is the one you see on your screen, which is called Coming to America. And in Coming to America, Arsenio Hall and Eddie Murphy go to a great bar in Queens where they go through a speed dating round where they run into lots of interesting ladies and a couple of gentlemen there as well. But I wanted us to think about the way our donors might feel when they first come to our organization. So there's some really good news about our first-time donors that are coming to us in droves. And then there's also some interesting news. So the first thing is understanding that as fundraising professionals, we need to really understand what our retention rate is. So the first thing you need to do after this webinar is go back to your shop and figure out what your first-time donor retention rate is for the donors who give their first gift to your organization. And then secondly, what is your overall retention rate? Some of you already know this, but here's what we have found. And again, Bloomerang has been industry leaders in the fact that most folks don't understand their retention rate. So if you don't know your retention rate, that's something you really need to know, because I bet all of you know how much fundraising money you need to gain this year, but many of you may not know how much it is that you need to retain. Less than 45% of our fundraisers know their current retention rate, which is simply not a good figure. We really need to understand that in order to raise more money, we actually have to keep the money we have. So I travel a lot. I'm on the road about 300 nights a year. That's my shoulder there and the image in the green shirt. And that right there is my neighbor. We'll call him Tim. And Tim's kind of like a lot of our fundraising shops. So Tim sits down on the plane. He sits down next to me, and he proceeds to take off his tie. Now, for those of you who are on the phone, you don't understand that I have that effect on most men when they get on the plane with me. But please understand that he took off his tie, he wrapped it right around his eyes, and he proceeded to sit like that for 4 hours and 13 minutes. Who was counting? I was counting, because I thought it was a very weird way to sit on a plane. So Tim has on his blinders, and I say that many of us have on our blinders when it comes to donor retention. Fortunately for us, Bloomerang has done great work pointing out donor retention numbers, and every year they issue a report, not every report, every year they issue a report about fundraising retention. And the results are in. They have both a 2013 and a 2014 report. 60% of our donors don't give again. So 6 out of every 10 overall donors don't give again. And that's not good numbers. Modern business tends to keep between 85 and 95% of their customers. So if we were to open up a business and call ourselves that instead of just a nonprofit, we would not be in good company. And as a matter of fact, with our first-time donors, that number is even worse. So we only retain 22.9% of our first-time donors. So that means that overall, 8 out of 10 of our donors who give their first gift never give again. And that is really, really not an acceptable number. We really need to figure out how to solve that problem, and so that's what I'm going to talk to you about today, is how we solve that donor retention problem. This equates out to real numbers and cents. So if 8 out of 10 of your first-time donors never give again, then you're going to spend your life on a hamster wheel trying to raise more money, when what you should have done is spent the time keeping the donors that you have. So these numbers are something for you to really look into. All right, what does it mean? It also means that in order to raise more money, or acquisition is far more expensive, 7 times more expensive than it is to keep the donors you have. So it's cheaper to keep the donors you have than it is to go out and acquire new donors. It's sometimes said that we're chasing our tails when we're acquiring new donors. And so one of the things we have to do is spend time focusing on the donors that we already have. So it is a higher return on investment to renew your donors than it is to go out and get a new one. So in order to do that, we have to understand a couple of things. Number one, that this is not about us and our organization. This is solely about the donor and their relationship. So one of the fun things they always say about millennials is that, their parents have told them that they're all special snowflakes. Well, all of our donors are special snowflakes, and we have to treat them that way. And so what we have to do is have them understand that it's not about our organization, that it's about the donor. So we have to treat the behavior, not the transaction. What does that mean? That means that the amount of a donor's last gift is the least important thing you know about the donor, and instead the behavior that they have with your organization, the way they give, their giving behavior, is the most important thing that we know about them. And donors really don't ask for a lot when they make a gift. And so I'm going to put up this slide and then let some of you chuckle silently back in your offices as you figure this out. But donors ask for us 2 simple things. In order for a donor to give again, a donor wants to be thanked and then told the impact of their gift. So we have to thank a donor sincerely and in a timely manner, and then we have to tell them the impact of their gift, right? And so what we're doing is we're failing on a couple of those points. So we may be a good job, we may be doing a good job at thanking them, but we may not be able to tell them what their money is doing. So we really have to be able to do both. It sounds like it's not a complicated thing, but it actually, in essence, is something that we have to put time and thought into. So rather than thinking about how we're going to get their next gift and what our solicitation is going to look like, we have to focus on what's called the 4 pillars of donor relations. So on your screen right now, you see a nice chart that I had someone draw for me when I wrote the book, 4 Pillars of Donor Relations. And what we want to talk about is that donor relations is both an art and a science. And if we understand donor relations in a modern, sophisticated fundraising shop, we also understand that donor relations is an umbrella term that encompasses 4 pillars of work. On your left-hand side, you have what I call the science, and that pertains to the donor's gift, so the actual donation that they just made. And our goal there is to steward the gift, because you cannot steward a donor. So using stewardship and donor relations interchangeably may be your first misstep. They're 2 completely different things. That's why they're 2 different words, right? So stewardship is telling the donor what we did with their money, how we spent it, and that we spent it according to donor's intent, right? Really important that we spell out to the donor that we spent it according to their intent and that this is what it went on, and here's the impact on our organization. Acknowledgement is everything from the receipt to the acknowledgement letter to the gift acceptance, and what the donors tell us they need from our science of donor relations for these 2 pillars is transparency, gratitude, and impact. So their needs are transparency, gratitude, and impact. So it's really important for us to meet those needs. And on the other side is art, and that really deals with the donor or the person behind the gift, the giving soul, as I call it. And what their wants are recognition and engagement. Those are the 2 pillars that cover that. So that's how we recognize them for their gifts, both publicly and privately, and how we engage them with their generosity. Gone are the days of, here's our finest coffee mug, or we're going to list you in a list of names. People don't do that anymore, right? Because we know that's not meaningful to our donors. Instead, we're talking about access, information, and experiences. What are the access, information, and experiences our donors need from us? And what does that mean for our engagement with them? And if we provide those wants, then we will retain our donors, and their money will grow, meaning their giving will grow, and so will their influence. But in order to do donor relations really well, we have to understand a couple of tenets. Number 1 is that really understanding that when a donor is going to give again, that we meet their needs and their wants. But we also have to understand that 35% of the population is not going to be charitable. They're not givers, right? So it doesn't matter if we had a small cancer kid carrying a dog with 1 black eye during an earthquake with Sarah McLachlan playing in the background, that they're just not going to give us money, that there is no cause too big or too little that they're going to give to. So we need to stop chasing those non-donors or spending tons of money on acquiring people who aren't going to give, and instead invest in those that are going to give. So I often say to the nonprofits I work with, take 10% of your acquisition budget and move it to donor retention, and your ROI will shoot through the roof. But firstly, we have to look at what the behavior of those donors is and plan thank you and impact towards those behaviors. So if your plan still says at $25 we do this, and $500 we do this, and $1,000 we do this, you're missing the boat. Instead, we go, for first-time donors we do this. For loyal donors we do this, right? So that's how it has to go. So what does that mean? That means that the way we look at our donors, both in reporting, in the way they come through our pipeline, make a big difference to us. So if you're still pulling your donor base based on LIBUNT and SCIBUNT, and that's last year donors but not this year, or unfortunately not this year, and some years but unfortunately not this year, then those are the most shallow ways to look at a donor. Instead, we need to look at their behavior, because their behavior is the continued indicator of how they will support us and how we need to thank them. Okay? And so what do I mean? Let me go through these reports and show you what we use in order to build this behavior. So you need to have a giving pyramid report. That's what donors give at what level to you and how many donors you have at each level, so we can know how to build our programs and what kind of resources we're going to need. Number 2, consecutive donor reports. How many donors do you have giving it 5 years consecutively, 10 years consecutively, 15, 20, 25 years consecutively? We also know that the consecutive donor, someone who gives 5 out of 7 years, is going to be your number one plan giving prospect. So those folks that give loyally at any amount, they are huge plan giving prospects, okay? So you want to make sure that you know who those folks are. Then you need a first-time donor report. Who's coming in the door? Now, if we're losing 80% of those, we want to hold on to 80%, not lose 80%. But who are those first-time donors, and what can we do special for them? Retention report. Those are the reports I talked about in the beginning. What is your first-time donor retention rate? And then what is your overall donor retention rate? And what does that look like for your organization? Has it gone up? Has it gone down? I can tell you that nationally our overall donor retention rates have gone down. So how do we correct that? We correct that by doing donor relations for our donors based on their behavior. Donor giving channel report. This is a great report because we know that the way a donor gives tells us a lot about them. So do they give online? Do they give through the phone? Do they use a credit card? Do they mail in a check? Did they come to an event and leave money? How the donor came to us is how we want to do this, right? So if I gave online and you're sending me something in the mail, you're already missing the boat, okay? So you really don't want to ignore the fact that the way a donor communicates to you and gives to you is a key indicator for their preference, okay? The next is a lapsed donor reacquire. So say a donor goes away, they gave in 2013, but they didn't give last year, and they come back to us. We want to go ahead and have that behavior noted and be able to look at that so that we can have a special stewardship and donor relations touch for them. And then finally, an increase report. So these are donors who've given 125% of their gift last year. So if last year I gave $100 and this year I gave $150, we really want to have them on a report so that we can do something special. So what their behavior does dictates what our behavior will be, because it's no longer good enough to say, well, we do this for $25 donors and this for $1,000 donors. Because remember that many, many donors make test gifts to our organization, and you don't want a test gift to be your missed opportunity for further giving, okay? So these are the reports you got to have, okay? And you also have to remember that everything that we do has to revolve around the donor, from events to stewardship to engagement to acknowledgement to recognition. Everything we do revolves around the donor. And so our goal is not to meet the needs of our organization, but to meet the needs of our donors. Okay, that's really important that we tell our donors that what they do matters and that they have an impact on the world around them. Here's a classic example of what we think donors want. That's tchotchkes or gifts, plaques, certificates, an honor roll or a listing of donor or fancy events. Donors have told us time and time again, please don't spend your time, money, and resources on that. Instead, give me access, information, and experience. So donors have told us, there's a great Yale study that says that anytime you give a donor a tchotchke with your logo on it, their next gift goes down 48%. And so that's really important to understand, that if you waste their money on items, they're not going to come back to you. Here's what donors really want. They want access, information, and experiences. And what does that mean? They want access to the people that benefit from their gift. So that is a hard pill for some of us to swallow, because we think naturally it means access to leadership of our organization. And frankly, that's not necessarily who all donors want access to. They really want access to the people that benefit from their funds. Okay? So the first and most meaningful thank you note that a donor can receive is from someone who benefits from their funds. The second is coming from a volunteer or someone who gives their time to the organization. The third is to a paid staff member, because they know we get paid to thank them, right? Information, and that's information before anyone else receives it. So before they read about it in the newspaper, what is it that we can give them as far as information. If you have a new director, can you tell them that before it hits the news? They want information before anyone else receives it, even if it's perceived before, right? And so understand that access, information, and experience. And then experience. Experience is something that the donor has that I call as sensory. And that is what is it that I can do to really involve that donor in their philanthropy, in their generosity in our organization, and that is experiences, be it a tour, be it meeting a beneficiary, doesn't matter. It's access, information, and experiences. That's what our donors have told us. Thousands of donors we've surveyed, they've told us these are what they want. So what you need to figure out as an organization is it's your decision time. Are you going to be the kind of organization that fills my mailbox with the stuff on the left-hand side of the screen? I can tell you that is my mail from 2 months last year. Some of those address labels are misspelled. Some of them didn't even have the right address. I wonder how it got to me. But I think the mail lady knows that I get a lot of direct mail from nonprofits, even though I've never made a gift using a check. Instead, are you going to write handwritten notes to your donors and make meaningful connections to them? So we're going to talk about what this means to our donor base. Now, the good news is that this applies to all of our donors, okay? So gone are the days when we can say, well, my donors are older, so they don't do digital, they only do print, or they like their name in a list. That's not true. So 60% of donors 65 and over give online, and 59% of donors younger than 65 give online. So there's no difference. The number one consumer of social media is our older donors, right? So age is not a factor in this. What is a factor is that our donors have gotten tired of the behavior that nonprofits have with them. So let me ask you all to think about the number one reason why donors don't give to an organization a second time. And let me tell you the answer to that. So think about why a donor doesn't give again. Okay? The number one reason why donors don't give again, in other words, the number one reason why donations leave you is because they're over-solicited, meaning you have sent them way too many solicitations after they've made their first gift. So what is your ask-to-thank ratio at your nonprofit? And understand that as your nonprofit goes and as we go in the industry, your donors don't understand. There's no such thing as a soft ask. That's like saying you're partially pregnant, okay? That just doesn't exist, okay? So what is your ask-to-thank ratio? And for every time a donor makes a gift, is your organization then thanking them and telling them what you did with their money? If it is, then I can tell you that your retention numbers are going to be high. If it's out of whack ask-to-thank ratio, then your retention numbers are going to be very low. So let me give you an example. I gave a gift on Giving Tuesday of last year. I gave a lot of gifts to Heifer International. I bought a goat. I gave a gift, and since I made that gift in December of 2014, I've been re-solicited over 50 times. Over 50 times. I've received more than 40 emails. I've received 4 direct mail pieces, but I've yet to receive a sincere thank you that didn't involve an ask. So what does that mean for your organization? Is your ask-to-thank ratio out of whack? I would bet so. Okay? For example, I received this in the mail one fine day sitting in my home in North Carolina, beautiful North Carolina that I miss so much. I'm in Ohio right now. I received this card, and it said, as a proud supporter, please detach this and place it proudly in your wallet. I looked at the mailing and went, all right, this is worth a try. I put it in my wallet. I drove to the airport. I got pulled over by the police. I said, can I see your license and registration, ma'am? And I whipped out my annual fund supporter card. And after I woke up from being tased by the lovely police officer, I realized that my annual fund supporter card wasn't going to get me anywhere. But I thought, you know what, maybe this isn't the right situation. So instead, I got to the airport. I got to the gate, which is wonderful, and I got there to my gate agent, Tracy, And I said, hey, Tracy. And she said, good morning, Lynn. How you doing? I said, I'm good. I whipped out my annual fund supporter card, and Tracy went, can I get TSA over to gate A3? Why? Because what am I going to do with that card? What is the point of having that? Why did you mail that to me? Is that really something as a donor that I'm going to show to other people? It's not a picture of my dog or a grandkid. It's an annual fund supporter card. And by the way, I didn't support an annual fund. I supported a person. People give to people. And the minute you include words like annual fund or campaign or designation or joint credit, people start running away from you. Okay? So stop talking to us like we understand that. Instead, we have to be more imaginative. We have to write brilliantly. We have to package it superbly and present it in a way that will captivate, thrill, and inspire. Okay? Now that sounds difficult, but I'm going to show you examples of how we can do it correctly and some places that miss the mark sometimes. So your first rule of thumb is no tasking. That's tasking, THASKING. It's the biggest cuss word in all of fundraising, and that is when you combine a thank and an ask. No tasking. Tasking is the cardinal rule. And why is there no thanking and asking combined? Because it's insincere. If you're going to ask someone, ask. If you're going to thank, you thank. But the minute you put a solicitation in a newsletter, the minute you include a business reply envelope and a receipt, you taint that thank you with an ask, okay? And again, donors don't understand terms like soft ask. They don't understand that. And they shouldn't, okay? They shouldn't have to understand that. What they should expect is a sincere thank you and impact their gift. So you guys are like, wow, this fast thing, I wonder if we do it. Let me show you an example of a fast. So this is a classic example what's on your screen right now, the fast. And it's one that I actually received. So I'm not making stuff up. This is right for you. So I gave a gift in December 2013. I'm a baller because I'm a consultant, so I gave $15 because that's how I roll, you know. Big dollar gift right there, right? But this is really a test gift. I gave $15 to St. Jude in December of 2013. There's a few problems with this communication. I'm going to show you just some of them. First, it has my name and my address up there, right? So it can mail to me. And then down here it says, Dear Friend. Well, A, we've never shared a beer, so I'm not your friend. I say that in jest, but I'm not your friend. All you had to do was drop down the mail merge field. I know that doesn't cost extra, and say, Dear Lynn. Then it says, your generous gift of $15 in December of 2013. Wait a minute. You wrote this letter on January 17th of 2014. So you're telling me it took you a month and a half to get me my thank you letter? Good gravy, right? Unacceptable. Too long. You have 24 to 48 hours to get me a receipt, and then 5 to 7 days to get me a letter of thanks. It says it will help save the lives of St. Jude children like Reese. No, it won't. Reese has a brain tumor. $15 is not going to save Reese's life. $15 at most hospitals, as many of you know, may not even buy Reese a Band-Aid. So don't over-exaggerate, and don't tell me that I'm going to save her life. What you could have said is my gift combined with others will make a difference, but it's sure as heck not going to save her life. And then it says your kindness and consideration mean more than you'll ever know. So now you're calling me simple because you say I'll never understand it. And then it says at the bottom, please accept the enclosed stickers to show how the children and their families appreciate your kindness. I'm not 9. I don't need stickers, okay? There was no reason to spend the extra money to send me stickers. It doesn't mean anything to me, and I don't have a sticker book to put them in. Now, many of you think I'm probably sound really harsh here, but this is the type of letter that goes out all the time and the type of letter that we have to stop doing. And the other thing is, look at the top of that page. On my thank you is an ask. It says, hey, your last gift wasn't good enough. Can you enclose more? And by the way, how about $23? Because that sounds like a normal amount. $23. So what does this FAST say about this organization? This FAST says that St. Jude doesn't know who I am. It doesn't care who I am, and that I'm going to get the same letter that all 10,000 other donors get. And you know what? They're not going to retain me as a donor because they've looked at my dollar amount and said that dictates what kind of person I am. Instead, we have to look at the behavior. So how do we solve this? Well, let me show you. This is a spreadsheet that we use at my clients to show that every single donor, based on their donor behavior, gets different types of communications. They're color-coded to serve many purposes, and they also have a method of delivery. Now, if you want to, you can email me, and I'll send you this spreadsheet. My email contact information is at the end of this presentation, so you don't have to recreate it. But a consecutive year donor of 25 or more years gets something different than a first-time donor, gets something different than a loyal donor. As you can see as we move through, JP Graves are our plan-giving donors, but there's a behavior on our end for every behavior on the donor's end. So if you're a staff member, you get a different thank you than an alum. That means you get a different thank you than a non-alum. Why? Because they're different people, and everybody deserves to be a special snowflake. And each behavior has a purpose. It's either to retain the donor or their behavior, stewardship of the gift, or to engage the donor. Every single communication has a purpose. And every communication also has an MOD or method of delivery. Because if I give online, you need to thank me online. If I give in paper, thank me in paper. That doesn't mean that I can't do some of both, but that I'm telling you my strong preference, and you ignore it by sending me a letter in the mail. Not good. Not good. So let's look at what some of these pieces can look like. So you all have been on this phone. You're like, okay, I'm 30 minutes in, Lynn. You haven't gotten me anything to do yet. So the first thing I'm going to do is answer some questions, and then I'm going to show you examples of what this looks like. Beth, White House. What happens when the donor's wishes don't align with the organization's mission? Then I wouldn't accept that gift. So if their needs don't fit with your mission, find them a mission that their needs align with. Mindy says lots of our donations are memorials from people who knew someone who passed away or friends of someone who lost someone to disease. How do we get those folks to change their one-time gift mindset? You show them the impact of their gift, and I'm going to show you examples of that. Good question. Heather, so much of what you say are things I've observed with younger donors. Do you have any information on the age range of who is responding to the studies? Well, the studies are not just for younger donors. They're set. One of the biggest ones I use is the Bank of America High Net Worth Survey. But these are tactics regardless of age. Okay? Megan, we don't solicit anyone in the same fiscal year that they give. They get a thank you note from either a student caller, class agent, or staff member. However, as soon as a new fiscal year begins, we resolicit. We send more than one solicitation a month, though by different channels. Is over-soliciting before the gift a major cause of donor loss? Absolutely. And understand, Megan, and I hate to break this to you, but most of your donors do not understand a fiscal year and don't give according to your fiscal year. Most donors care about a calendar year. That's January to December. So if you try to put them on a fiscal year calendar, they may not care about that. So understand that may cause confusion for them. Jody, how does she personalize a thank you when you have hundreds of donors to thank? I'm going to show you how. And then Tim, is it okay to send a year-end donation receipt summary in December and include an ask in this letter? You don't want to include an ask when you're giving them a receipt, okay? So you don't want to include an ask when you have a receipt. So an ask is an ask and a thank as a thank, okay? So great questions. So let's look at some of our examples of what we can do. So the first thing you need to do is look at what is your first impression for donors. And your first impression for donors is either the online confirmation page of their gift or your receipt. And so when I give online to your organization, what does it look like? I can tell you right now that many of them look like your cart is empty, or thank you for your transaction, or your transaction is complete. But I can tell you that not many of them are pretty, and many fewer tell a story. This is what happens when you give $25 to Charity Water. It says, thank you, Lynn. It has my name spelled, so there's mass personalization. You've just changed lives. And then it tells me the story of Helen and how Helen's village didn't have a well, but then years ago people donated and she got a well, and it transformed her and her neighborhood. When I give a gift, instantaneously, my first impression of you is the online confirmation, the email you send me, and the screen upon which you do it. If I make a check gift, your receipt matters, okay? Remember that all the communications they have to have from you guys, the only one they keep is the one on the receipt. Okay, so understand that they have to keep your receipt, so spend some time and effort on that. And continue that. We call these thank you journeys. So I received this wonderful thank you screen, right? And on this thank you screen, it told me about Helen, and then 3 months later I got this beautiful email that said, will the beautiful women of the world please stand up, and continued my thank you journey, right? So there's Helen again. And here's the great thing. You guys think this looks fancy? Helen, as I flip back and forth, is in the same photo shoot facing 2 different ways. You guys, this does not have to be so overcomplicated, okay? Does not have to be complicated. So think about it that way. So it does not have to be complicated. It has to be meaningful. It has to tell a story, but it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. Does not have to be overcomplicated. So then it tells me Helen's story. It tells me the impact I've had on on the organization. And then they do go beyond, which is what we should all do, and tell me the impact of my gift. So they then tell me that here is where my gift went. So my $25 combined with other people, and it went to Ethiopia. It drilled a well that cost $7,300, and it served 185 people. Then they sent me photos of people drinking clean water out of that well, and then they did the ultimate, and they sent me the GPS coordinates of that well so that any time, day or night, 365, I can go online and look at that well sending clean water to that village for a $25 gift. Folks, I've given $10,000 to organizations that have never done this for me. You have to do this for your donors, otherwise they will leave you. So the first is to report, to thank, and then to report impact. So if I were to have given that gift not online, through a check in the mail, here's what a receipt, a good receipt, would look like. On the back, you have this beautiful flame thank you language. So when it folds, the first thing that comes out of the envelope is the word thank you. On the other side, we have great information about the story of the gift. And remember, a receipt and a thank you are 2 separate things. So a receipt and a thank you are 2 separate communications. They're 2 separate pieces. Okay, you need to completely separate them. A receipt is something that you get for a transaction. That doesn't mean that it doesn't need to have nice language. That doesn't mean that it doesn't need to look beautiful. But a thank you builds a relationship. A receipt is for a transaction. A thank you builds a relationship. So this is the receipt we send. If you give to an art student, it has an art student. If you give to physics, it has a physics student. It's a mail merge. It's really easy. But the other thing we include on this receipt that I find very powerful is the number of years of consecutive giving, because that's really important to us. So don't leave the back of your receipt blank. That's the worst thing you can do, is leave the back of your receipt blank. Let me give you an example of what the American Heart Association did on the back of their receipt. This is really cool, and we can take it a step further. So they have this cute little girl, and they have things that donors have made possible at the American Heart Association. Really good. What would have been even better is if it would have told me about this little girl, because she's on here, there's no connection to her. So connect that photo back to the story, right? Just like they did with Helen at Charity Water. So fix your receipt and your online confirmation before you do anything else. If you can't get those 2 working well, that is your first impression, and people are unlikely to give you again if you can't express gratitude in your receipt and your online confirmation. The second, you're going to build a first-time donor program. So what do you do for your first-time donors? And my friend Mary just pointed out, she said, 7 amazing things you have made possible would be even better. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Okay, so first-time donor programs. Great job, Mary. Thanks for pointing that out. First thing, you want to send within the first 30 days a communication to them letting them know that you know it's their first gift, be it an email, a postcard, anything, you want to send out something to them saying, you've made your first gift, welcome into the family. So that's within their first 30 days. I like postcards because, as we know, if it comes in an number 10 envelope, most of us aren't opening it. I like a postcard because it's visual. It requires you to be a good editor. Then they should get a phone call, either from a student or a volunteer or someone who benefits from the money, right? So after your phone call, then you want a handwritten note or an impact report telling them what their money did at your organization. And that doesn't have to be a report in an 8.5 by 11 folder. It can take many forms. Then after that, and only after that, do you want to solicit. So you should not be soliciting your first-time donors right after they make their first gift. You need to give them time. And if you're soliciting in a newsletter, that's a solicitation, okay? So if you have a donation button on your newsletter, then that's a solicitation. But if you want to separately ask them, that's different, okay? So first-time donor program, got to have one. This is one we implemented at Cook Children's Hospital that I love, that is variable dated. It tells them, takes to your investment, we're able to provide the following returns. So really, really good. If you were doing, and to answer Lori's question, if you were doing it in honor or in memory of someone, you could say, their memory lives on here and here's how, or we're happy to help you honor the spirit. So really, really easy to do. These are easy. If you need a great resource for postcards, go to psprint.com, PS, like the initials, psprint.com. You can get about 5,000 postcards for $80. Everybody can afford to do this, okay? Here's an impact report, a really great example of an impact report. Kalamazoo College sent this to me. I think it's brilliant. You can Google it and find it online. Understand that it is important that you show them the impact of their gift, but you don't have to print something to do so. If they gave online, send the impact report to them online. The thing I love about this impact report, for those of you who go look it up, is it has the journey of a gift, and it's really, really powerful about how important those donors are to the organization. Charity Water in December took all of their donors and did a day to feature each donor in December. And so I stole this idea, brought it to a client, and we now have Gratitude Tuesdays. So every Tuesday, my client features a different student or person at the organization thanking a donor via social media, either on Facebook and Twitter. So really great way is it doesn't have to be in print. It can be digital. It can be social. Understand, here's my statistic about older donors. So older donors are now just as likely to make their gifts online as younger donors, and there's the source for you. You should check out that study. It's very powerful. It also talks about direct mail that drives to digital for older donors. So gone are the days where you say, well, only older donors only give via check. Not true. This is something we did at Oklahoma State, and it's where students pair up and give thank you on social media to donors. So again, there's lots of ways to get first-time donors involved with the organization. Now, I'm going to ask everybody to jog your brain. I bet all of you know the person who's given the most amount of money to your organization, like biggest donor you've got, big dollar amount donor. But how many of you know the name of the donor who's been giving the longest to your organization? How many of you know the person that has been given the longest to your organization? I bet many of you don't know that, but that person is really important. So I want you to meet Eugenia. We went on a hunt for her at the University of Tennessee, and Eugenia has been given 70 years straight and never missed a year, 70 years straight. So we featured her on the cover of our Gratitude magazine. That's her now and her as an undergraduate. And we told her story. We made her the hero. You need to make loyal donors the hero just as much as you make big donors your hero. Okay? Take Hal Ripley as an example. So this is Hal. No, he's not the man on the Disney movie Up, I promise. But he sure does look like it. This is Hal Ripley, and he is a Dartmouth alum, class of 29. And until his passing, Hal had given every single year since he graduated, 83 years straight, right? So Hal is a hero. So they created a giving society in his honor. for people who'd given every single year since they graduated to Dartmouth. And now Hal and his 5,000 friends are all heroes to Dartmouth because they've given every year. Doesn't matter the amount. It matters the loyalty. So what are you doing to feature your loyal donors? All right, this is our welcome back postcard. This is a postcard that we send out to donors who have lapsed. So this would be your SciBunt donors. They lapse, they come back to the organization, we send this postcard to them. It says, so that's the president and his wife on the front with all of our student photos on collars. And we say, welcome back. And on the back we say, we're so happy you're back. Basically, we noticed you were gone, we missed you, and we want you back. And then we gave you a link to the impact report. So really great way to welcome people back into the fold based on their behavior. Again, not on the amount of their gift. Here's another idea for loyal donors. The president of the university has a list of 220 donors that are celebrating their 20th anniversary of their first gift. So it's been 20 years. They've been giving straight for 20 years. He writes each and every one of them a handwritten note from the president. He told me that he finds it very rewarding, but he also told me he didn't realize he was going to become a pen pal because now he has people who thank him for his thank you notes, and he has to write them a thank you for thanking him for thanking you, and he just loves the interaction, but he didn't realize he would become such a pen pal. Great, great effort you can do. So I do a lot of board trainings and a lot of trainings around the country. As Stephen said, I'm always speaking at a conference right now. I'm in Ohio at a university. And I always start all my board meetings with writing 5 handwritten thank you notes. It is the best. All my board members start the meeting writing 5 handwritten thank you notes to donors. Who do they write to? They write to loyal donors. They write to first-time donors, but they write to donors. Oh, and I have a Whitworth alum on the line. Hello, Kim. You're going to see a lot of familiar things. This is something we're doing at Whitworth, and this postcard goes out to anyone who gave 125% of their last gift. So oh, good. I work with Livestrong. That's in Austin, Texas, and they have something called the 110% Club. So whenever anybody goes above and beyond with their donation, they recognize them. So at Whitworth, in honor of their 125th anniversary, and so we recognize that, and we send them a postcard that says, you went above and beyond, 125% or more of your gift you gave to last year. And as we wrap up our 125th year anniversary, we want to thank you for making us an inspiration to you and making it a great institution. So I've got 4 people on the line that are Whitworth alums. That's hilarious. So the good news, so you guys are like, this all looks like a lot of work. Yeah, in 2 years, we've raised first-time donor retention 12 percentage points. That equates to $385,000 to them. That's a lot of money. So raising retention equals dollars, okay? So again, it doesn't have to be huge sweeping videos. It's simple touches that let people know that they're special. This is one that I received from Boston University that was fantastic. It was their year in review, and I love it because they included the total number of inches of snow they got in Boston this year, 108.6, which I was there a lot, so they received a lot of snow. And it was just a really clean infographic, and then on the back it linked me to the impact report. So again, not spending a ton of money releasing impact reports or what used to be called annual reports. Most of us don't do annual reports anymore. We've moved to impact reports. But also understanding that this is really, really important, but we need to get it out to people in a cost-effective manner. Another group that you may be overlooking is your monthly donors. So for donors who get recurring gifts, monthly gifts, this is a huge population. Most of our asks now are done monthly first. What are you doing for your monthly donors? So I was so impressed by Charity Water back in the day that I joined their monthly donor club called The Pipeline, and I get the most wonderful updates from them once a quarter. And so I get these great emails that say, here's our update. Here's your Jalabandhu, which is the name for a water mechanic in case you didn't know. But listen to this text. This text is what you want to do when you're talking to your monthly donors. Your monthly giving provides us with a consistent, reliable funding stream, and that's precisely what this work demands, consistent, reliable efforts. This is not about one-off heroics. It's about creating conditions that empower local people to continue working each day to keep the water flowing. Absolutely phenomenal. I'm sure Mary and my friend Beth who are listening are like applauding at this text. It makes the consistent, reliable donor the hero. not necessarily the big donor. And the text is really specific to monthly donors. Here's the most recent update that I've gotten from them saying because of members like you, we're able to maintain water points in some of the most hard-to-live places on the planet. Really great. Last week I had the pleasure of being in Cambridge, Massachusetts at MIT, and here's what we're doing for monthly donors there. They have massive, so their first-time donor retention rates at MIT are over 78%. Why? Because they have first-time donor programs built in, and Beth McGonigal, who runs their donor relations program for first-time donors and annual donors, does a great job. So this is something they send to their recurring donors. It's a website, really simple to do. And what it is their desktop and phone backgrounds, and they change every month. So every month you can have a different photo of campus, of MIT, to put on your desktop or on your phone to remind you that your gift to MIT every month sustains them. This is not hard to build, does not cost a lot of money, but is really well done. So you can do something like this. All right, so how are you going to implement this? What is this going to be like? I want to leave time so I can get to some of your questions. So if you have questions, go ahead and type them in. But I wanted to show you how to implement. So it used to be that we used to have to build these programs all at once. So our customers, our end result, weren't happy until they got the full car. But I like to do the skateboard method of building, and this happens in coding and programming a lot, skateboard method build. And so what we do is we give you a skateboard. And then after that, we give you a scooter. And then you get a bicycle and a motorcycle, and then you get the car. And all along, your impression goes up, right? And so you really have to think about what that means to your organization is what I have to start small and start somewhere that's going to have the biggest impact. So where do you start? The first place you start is with your online giving confirmation, your receipts, and your email. Then you go to first-time donors. After you've built a first-time donor program and you've built it well, then after you build first-time donor program, you build a loyal donor program. After you build a loyal donor program, then you build an increased donor program. Do you see how this builds upon itself? So the whole program at Whitworth is designed and built, and really it's done once a month, so it's very easy to update and maintain. But you have to start somewhere and really move on from there. So I'm going to start answering questions as I put up my contact information. If you need samples, first of all, my website has over 14,000 samples from different organizations. Number 2, follow me on Twitter. On LinkedIn, I have a group of 4,000 professionals that talk about this stuff all day long. Or you can email me directly. I can come speak to your board. I can speak to your group. We can work together on how you can build this program at a reasonable level for you. So while we're doing that, I'm going to take some questions. So Michelle has one. How do you provide experiences if you have HIPAA privacy issues? Okay, that's a great question. I work a lot with organizations that have HIPAA. And a lot of the times the people that we get to tell the stories aren't the patients themselves, but their family members. And also sometimes we can provide experiences that don't necessarily violate HIPAA. So really, really important to do. Diana, do you think it is necessary to send the thank you letter on board letter? I assume you meant letterhead. No, the thank you does not have to come on board letterhead. As a matter of fact, the more creative your thank yous, the better. Nobody reads the 8.5 by 11 letters anymore. So the more creative you make it, the better. And short is sweet. So don't try to overdo something. Caroline, I'm the youngest at my company. How do I implement this? People are always busy. You have to show them the ROI. And we have charts of what the ROI of raising retention 1 point at a time is. And so if you show them this matters dollars and cents, people get unbusy really quickly. Joy, what about asking the donor to subscribe to our email list? Can you include that in a thank you note to first-time donors? You certainly could, as long as your email list isn't going to solicit them. Remember, you don't want to over-solicit your donors, so think about that. Heather, our organization has been around for 11 years, but has only been truly tracking donors for 2.5 years. How can we recognize loyalty? You start with the loyal donors you have, and you go from there, Heather. Have them tell you if they've been giving the whole time, and then code them. It doesn't hurt you to do that. So great question. Megan, I run phone-a-thon at my org, but we haven't done thank you calls before. Oh, girl, you're missing it. We do thank you calls all the time. Every board retreat, every big cabinet meeting, everything. Do phone-a-thon donors like thank you calls? Absolutely. And if we don't get a hold of a donor on a thank you call, we send voicemail. Thank you voicemails are really, really worth the effort. Really enjoy the time doing those, and we tend to learn a lot from those thank you phone calls. So great effort for you to do thank you phone calls, not just once, but continuing throughout the year. Terencia, I hope I didn't murder your name. How many pages would you suggest a newsletter to be? Ideally, it would be 2 scrolls on a phone screen. So I'm not big on long printed stories. It should be concise. It should be the ability should be able to be read online. So understand that most of our email is consumed on a phone. 76% of email in this country is consumed via mobile phone. So you need to have the ability to be able to have it read on the phone. Okay. Megan, you mentioned research against giving branded freebies to donors. Can you give that research? Yeah, it's on my website. And if you email me, I can also email you a copy of it, but it was done by Yale. Tracy, many of our donors are through our 5K event fundraising pages created by our families. How do we convert them to regular donors? You use your families who got them in the first place to help show them the impact. So that's a whole other type of retention, but you could use the same principles. Let's see. How to start with one-person shop. Great question, Joan. Start simply, okay? Start with a first-time donor communication and fixing your receipt. Okay? So start with one thing, do it really well. I hope that helps. Jessica, what about tax information that's normally included in an acknowledgement letter? Nope, tax information is on a receipt. An acknowledgement letter is a thank you. There's 2 different things. And I can show you samples. They're both on my website, sweetie. But the tax information goes on a receipt. Do I think a thank you postcard would come off as impersonal? I tend to like them better than letters, period. Just to give you perspective, letters have to be opened. They're just not as good as postcards. We've had some great postcard success. Which program should we start with? The one with the biggest amount of money tied to it, and that's usually your first-time donors. So first-time donors is usually the program I recommend everyone start with. After that, I recommend they start with loyal donors. So really, really, really want to think about first-time donors before you start anything else. Hope that helps you. I'm trying to get to all these questions. I've got so many. And if I don't get to your question, you can email it to me. Are pictures of new equipment or capital improvement that expand our mission worth sharing? Okay, pictures of equipment and buildings. Those are nice things, but donors don't give to buildings and equipment. They give to the people that use them. So instead, take pictures of the people using them. Okay? So again, people give to people. People don't give to things. So you want to make sure that you do that. Excuse me. How do you do this with small staff? You focus on one thing and you do it really well, Jessica, and then you move on from there. So try one of these techniques, get it done really well, and move on from there. Understand that, excuse me, with some of our donors, simpler is better. Okay? So think about that. So really, really think about simpler is better. So I'm going to turn it back over to Stephen so he can finish off our slides. If I didn't get to your question, please email it to me. Give me about 24 hours to turn that around. Tweet me, join me on LinkedIn. Would love to talk to you. But thank you so much, everybody. And I know you're going to get copies of these slides. So Stephen's going to take it from here.
Well, thank you, Lynn. We should be saying thanks to you. This is really awesome information. I know everyone was enjoying it. We got some good tweets and good comments. I know you saw some of those. So thanks for doing this. Thanks for taking an hour out of your day, more than an hour really because of all the prep time. Hope everyone enjoyed it. And please do send additional questions to Lynn. I know we didn't have quite enough time for all your questions. I feel like we talk about this stuff for hours, but we do have to cut it off there. So I'm glad that you were all here for the presentation. I want to keep the conversation going. We do these webinars every Thursday. Got a good lineup coming up. We've got lots of free information on our website as well. Check out next week's webinar. We're going to talk about content marketing with Mike Brown, and then we've got some other interesting ones coming up a few weeks later. Lori Jacobwith is going to join us to talk about powerful stories at your fundraising events. Lots of other cool topics. Check out our upcoming webinars. We would love for you to register, and we'd love to see you again on a Thursday sometime in the future. So I'm going to cut it off there. I will be sending out the recording as well as the slides once again later on this afternoon. So look for an email from me, and hopefully we'll see you again on a next webinar sometime. So have a great rest of your day. Have a good weekend, and we will talk to you again real soon. Bye now.